Don Mazzella again here for Small Business Digest. Incentive and how you reward people, etc., is still a question. I had someone on my show last week that said you shouldn't use money to reward your employees. But then again, we have somebody that says just the opposite, which is what this program's about. David Leeds is here to join us. He's president of a company that we all should know more about. David, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Don, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I started this company, Tango Card, about 12 years ago. And our focus is on rewards and incentives for enterprise customers. And yes, these are companies that are using non-cash rewards, things like gift cards and so forth, to drive some business results. And that can be employee engagement, customer acquisition, whatever it may be. I was born in Michigan, grew up on the East Coast, and have lived in a number of places in the world. And Tango Card is the third company that I have started from scratch. And so far, it's been the most fun.
Okay. Well, you gave us a little start, but now give us your website just before we go any further.
Absolutely. So our website is www.tangocard. That's TANGOCARD.com. TangoCard.com.
Well, okay. Now let's talk about it. Like I say, last week we had somebody on a program that said the last thing you should do is give a reward to your employees in terms of money because it raises. But let's just step back a minute. What are some of the, and by the way, remember our audience is employers with less than 100 employees for the most part.
Yep.
But what are some of the uses that you see that are cost effective for a smaller enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, so let me touch on a couple things. I think it has been a huge trend for companies, small and large, but small companies, to give a reward or an incentive to an employee. And something like 83% of companies today use these non-cash rewards to engage employees. So a couple of the specific use cases are a manager to an employee recognition. We've seen a lot more peer-to-peer recognition. So someone that has helped their colleague out, that person may reward and recognize their colleague with an incentive or a reward for that help. But it has become much more common, and it's become much more common for a couple of very specific business reasons. If you look at the data, companies that use rewards and incentives have 3 times higher annual revenue growth than those that don't. And so there's a very tangible financial reason to use rewards and incentives. The second, though, and this is a big difference between giving somebody cash and giving somebody something like a gift card, is that gift cards have impact. And what we mean by impact is that if you give somebody, say, an additional $25 in their bank account, they're not going to tell their colleagues about that. They're not going to talk about what they did with that. In fact, they may not do anything with it because it's kind of commingled now with the rest of their savings or checking account. If you give somebody a $25 gift card, 2 things happen. First is they tell everybody what they did with that gift card. And then the second is they remember who gave it to them forever. And so you have this huge benefit of impact when you give a non-cash reward versus adding some extra cash into somebody's account.
Okay, but you can also, I love it when they say if you fill out the survey, you'll get a $25. But the 5,000 people fill out the survey, and one person gets $25. My question, I guess, is it better to give one person more money or a lot of people less money?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's especially relevant for surveys in your example. And one of the reasons that companies even use an incentive for a survey is that, in part because they need a high enough response rate to make sure that the responses are statistically significant. So there are a lot of companies that have tried requesting feedback on a survey, and they just don't get enough response for it to be statistically significant. The direct answer to your question, though, is that um, giving more people a lower denomination of an incentive yields higher results. And it yields higher results because of that predictability. Someone says, "Oh, well, if I complete the survey, I know that I'm going to get $5 rather than getting a chance at $1,000." Now, having said that, both are more effective than doing nothing. It's just that giving a predictable, known incentive has higher impact. One of the beauties of digital rewards and digital incentives is that, if you're giving somebody a physical gift card, um, it's not cost effective to give somebody a $2 or $3 physical gift card. What ends up becoming much more attractive, if you can send somebody an incentive via an email or SMS or something digital, is that you can recognize somebody or reward someone or incentivize someone with relatively low dollar denominations, $1, $2, $3, and those things still work even if it's not a high dollar denomination.
Well, I kind of short circuited, but let's go back to the beginning. Uh, have 70 employees, and I decide I'm going to put together a program. Well, I come to you and I say, "Give me what are the questions I should be asking you, and what are the questions you ask me?"
That's a great question. So, I mean, the really the first and most important question you should be asking is really, what rewards and incentives do you have? Because at the end of the day, what you need is the reward or the incentive that's actually going to, drive the behavior that you're looking for. And so, in some cases, someone's employees might say, "Hey, we're really into food delivery right now because this was super common during the early stages of the pandemic, where people were working from home. They've got kids that are learning around them, and so what they really needed was help with a meal. And so you want to make sure that whoever you're working with has the right rewards. They have coffee gift cards if that's important, or restaurant gift cards if that's important, or even discount retailers if that's important. So you really want to understand the catalog, so to speak, that's available. The second thing that you want to understand, really is how am I going to send that to in this case, my employees? And so what you typically want there is a really easy web application that you can create an account, sign in, fund your account, and send out the rewards without it being challenging, because you only have so many minutes in your day to do this. And if you promise somebody a reward or recognition, you want to make it happen. And so you want a really easy web-based way to do that. And the third, of course, is you want to understand the economics. So if I have a budget of $1,000 to spend on employee recognition or employee incentives, how much of that budget actually goes to those rewards and incentives versus fees and that type of thing. So there are other considerations, but you really want to understand, do you have the rewards I need? Is it going to be easy for me to send them? And is it going to be cost effective in the sense that I want essentially I want all of my budget to go to the rewards and the incentives, and not fees and other nickeling and diming that can happen sometimes.
Well, we'll get into that, but let's back up a minute. Is it better to give them a card physically, or to do it online?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a big distinction between, call it, kind of personal giving and kind of business or corporate giving. On the personal side, it's still very common for someone to say, "Hey, I want to, I'm going to go to your birthday party, or I'm going to, show up at some party. And I want to physically hand you your gift." You know, maybe it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, is that, on the in the in the world we live in today, even before the pandemic, it was way more effective to send somebody, a gift card digitally, send it to their email, send it to their phone, because you're not always there with them. And obviously during the pandemic, almost everybody initially went, home. And now people are working hybrid remotely. People have moved from one state to the other. Other people have moved out of the country. And so it's even more important now to be able to send, a gift card digitally, because it's much more likely that that person is not going to be right next to you or even coming into the office at all.
Oh, okay. So now we, but I guess so. But should I be asking you? What types of? I'm a total novice at it.
Yeah.
Somehow or other, I want to get my employees. Do you do a reward if they get 100% on their customer service, or um, how do you recommend people approach this whole question?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are a couple of, maybe I'll just call them, best practices to think about. I mean, one of the things with rewards and incentives is, at the end of the day, you're not trying to reward uh, someone for kind of, just doing their job, so to speak. I mean, the idea behind a reward or recognition is that, you've done something above and beyond. And so it's really important that, if you're a sole proprietor or if you have a small team, that there's a shared understanding of, hey, if we're going to have rewards and incentives, let's make sure we're using them to really incentivize behavior or recognize behavior where people have gone above and beyond. And people go above and beyond all the time, and so it's important to pause and recognize that. But you do want to recognize performance above and beyond, and not just for someone kind of doing their job, number one. Number two is, it is good to pick a budget, and picking a budget does a couple things. One is that you're very clear about the fact that you're not going to spend more than, say, whatever the number is, $5,000, $100, it doesn't matter. The second thing, though, and this may sound odd, is that you also make sure that you do spend that money. And there are a lot of companies that will say, hey, we're willing to spend or invest in our employees. We're willing to use rewards and incentives. But if you don't establish a budget, if you don't measure it, if you don't track it, if you don't report on it, then you may end up not using it. And I'll go back to the statistic that I gave earlier, which is companies that actively use rewards and incentives have higher revenue growth. And so if you're looking for that high revenue growth, especially in more uncertain economic times, you want to make sure that you're spending that budget to get those results.
Hmm. Before we go further, your website again for our audience?
Yeah, sure. It's tangocard.com. So it's www.tangocard.com.
I always ask this. How did you come up with that name and why?
I have always loved the name Tango in general, and for me, and I think for a lot of people, it really signifies partnership. And for those of us that are old enough to know the expression "it takes two to tango," it really is where it comes from. And the idea is that whenever you have a relationship with a business, it really should be that partnership. When one side wins, the other wins also. And so I tried to use the name www.tango.com. That wasn't available. And I think this marriage of Tango and then kind of marrying it to the gift card world led to Tango Card. And that URL was available and so fit really well. But it really is exciting to me because it implies partnership.
That's a great name. I always ask
Thank you.
our guests.
Thank you.
But now let me ask you this question. Uh, and it goes back to when I was a young reporter, and I happened to do something that got a reward, and it made everybody else in my bureau jealous.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, it's too complicated to go into. But my question is, if you give it a reward to one person, aren't you getting other people envious?
That's a good question. I don't know kind of all the psychology behind that. I think what I would say we've observed is that in many of the companies that we work with, they actually take that recognition one step further. So what they do is, in addition to giving someone, let's just call it a $5 or $10 gift card, that is that recognition. A lot of companies are actually sharing that through their internal kind of social channels. So that could be on Slack if you use Slack, or it could be on other, could even just be on leaderboards. And so companies are even kind of almost doubling down on the fact that not only are we giving you that recognition, we're actually broadcasting it. And I think there is certainly, as you mentioned, the kind of the risk that it makes people jealous. I think what more companies, not all companies, but what more companies have seen is it actually encourages people to do more, right? Because they're seeing the recognition, and they're seeing that, hey, if I go above and beyond, it's actually recognized. Because I think what a lot of people get frustrated with, whether it's their employer or something else, is that, hey, if I'm putting in this extra effort and nobody notices, why am I doing it?
Mhm.
So I think I think the concern is fair, and I think it probably does happen in cases. But I think because companies are actually recognizing that, both in words and in some cases, and with something that has monetary value, it actually encourages others to step up as well.
Well, that's good to hear. Um, the reason I asked that question, there was an experiment done here in New Jersey. Uh, now it's almost 20 years ago, where they tried to incentivize the local post office.
Mm.
But people who have jobs which are secure don't
Mm.
seem to react as much to that. What they came away with. But anyway, um,
Yeah, the only exception that I know of to that we've directly been involved with is that we've supported some cases where companies that have a lot of people working in warehouse type jobs. Obviously, a key metric there can typically be around safety. And so we have seen some companies that will use a reward when they see safety metrics improve, and
mm,
that can typically be, it doesn't have to be a large denomination, but it can typically reward everyone in the
right.
warehouse for that combined outcome. I don't know that we've supported anything specifically in post offices, but I think that principle can apply in some related areas.
Well, let's go back to why you're originally here. You indicate that cards can help in other ways. So the floor is yours. Tell us more how you want to do it, or
Yeah,
how
I
we
mean,
can do it.
absolutely. So, the most common uses of gift cards for sure have historically been in employee programs, and that is employee recognition, but increasingly things like employee wellness types of programs where you know companies will find ways to incentivize their employees to do step challenges, have healthy behaviors, smoking cessation programs. The list goes on. So those have become very, very popular. We talked a little bit earlier about incentivizing survey completions and that type of thing, and some of the benefits that has. We've seen, especially on the small business side, companies are increasingly using a gift card to thank somebody for a lead. So, hey, if you introduce me to a prospect, whether that becomes a customer or not, I'm thanking you for doing that with a small denomination gift card. And then, finally, what the industry calls gift with purchase is, hey, if you buy my service or subscribe to my service or whatever it may be, I may also give you, it depends on the price tag, so to speak, but I might give you a 25 or a $50 gift card, really as recognition for signing up. And that kind of, gift with purchase, if you will, has been incredibly effective in a number of programs that we've seen, especially over the last few years.
Well, now let's talk about that for instance. Uh, who fit? Does the company have the card, or do you fulfill the card?
Yeah, so I think maybe part of the beauty of what we do is, let's just say you own an upholstery shop. Let's say you want to thank somebody for bringing your couch in to get reupholstered. What you do with Tango Card is you create an account, and let's just say you put $500 in that account. And then what you would do is you would basically type in that person's first name, last name, and email address, and basically the value of the gift card that you wanted to give them, and then you click send, and we take care of the rest of it. So we will send the gift card to that person. If for some reason they have a problem with it, if they don't understand it, or they need some help redeeming it or using it, we have a full-time what we call recipient support team that answers chat messages, answers the phone, answers emails, that helps those people to the extent that they have any kind of an issue. So as the business owner, really all you have to do is say, I want to recognize this person with this gift card, and Tango Card literally takes care of the rest. So you don't have to have gift cards in your store. You don't have to have them in your drawer. You don't have to manage them. You don't have to track them. All that stuff is done in the software that we provide.
Okay. What do you charge? Let's say on a $50 gift card. How much do I pay you?
Yeah, I mean, this may be the best part of it. You don't pay us anything. But let me explain. So you don't pay for our software. You don't pay for delivery. You don't pay for any of the reporting and so forth that you need. So let's say in this example, let's say you want to send a $50 gift card. You pay us $50 for that gift card, and that's it. And then the recipient gets $50 of value. And the reason it works that way is that we have relationships with all of the retailers that have these gift cards, and they pay us a commission, what the industry calls a discount, and that's how we have a business model. But the benefit of that is that the business owner that we're working with, whatever budget they have, 100% of that budget goes to the rewards that they send, and nowhere else. So no fees to use the software, no fees for the sending of the card, that kind of thing.
If I go to American Express to get a card, I'm 3.5%.
That's right. And in some cases, there's if you want to send a $50 gift card there might be, it depends on the location, but you might pay $2 or $3 or $5 on top of the face value of the card, and that's not the case with our business and our business model.
Well, we should have started off with that first. I think would have kept. Your website again?
Yep, the website is tangocard.com, www.tangocard.com.
We have just about a minute left. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. This was a pleasure to do this. And I think what I would leave the audience with is that, rewards and incentives work. People kind of know this intrinsically, but maybe more important than the intrinsic knowledge is that it's supported by the business results. If you're trying to grow your revenues, using rewards and incentives, especially gift cards, helps with that. If you're trying to keep customers that you already have loyal, gift cards and rewards and incentives work, for that. So there's my point is that there's real business logic, that are business results driven, that suggests that using rewards and incentives to achieve your business results really work, and it works on an ongoing basis. And of course, I'd be foolish not to say, give Tango Card a shot to earn your business.
Why not? After you tell me that it doesn't cost me anything, why not? One last time, your website.
Yep, the website is tangocard.com, www.tangocard.com.
Thank you so much for a really enjoyable and a learning experience for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. I appreciate it.